this industry and the sector isn't doing what I want it to do, well, there's no point in me doing it. It's completely transforming that, saying, well, actually, do you know what? I'm going to lean into this. I can lead the charge, I can have the conversations, and I can support my consumers by offering a product or service that gives them the opportunity to have the choices that they want.
No, only that any of these actors can actually flip that and change that. Business in particular has a long track record, and you will all know in the audience that we can lead, and we do lead in lots of different ways, and we don't wait because business is agile.
So we're going to start here with a little bit of data. So we've got the World Economic Forum Global Risk Report on your screen. And this is the latest information from January 2024. And why are we showing this? This is an incredible report that really brings to life the top risks as identified by the World Economic Forum for the next 2 and 10 years. And you'll see there that actually the key risk that's coming to the global economy and social sectors and the environment is actually misinformation and disinformation. Yes, absolutely, extreme weather events are there, as is societal polarization. And it's important to see how all these different areas, whether they're economic, environmental, geopolitical, societal, technological risks, that they are very interconnected. So when we look at sustainable business and the future of business, it's important to see how all these elements fit together. And this is where this incredible interconnected map really brings that to life. So what that's showing you here is the size of the blob that you're seeing, relevant to that particular risk. And I understand the writing perhaps is a bit small for everyone to read. But the size of the blob is actually the importance of that risk on the kind of global economic structure. But what you can see with all those grey lines connecting there is how it all is influenced. So you can see immediately that, involuntary migration is so connected to environmental change. Societal polarization is completely connected with misinformation and disinformation. Lack of economic opportunity really comes to life even through environmental issues as well as geopolitical issues. So it's really important to kind of take a step back and say it's not purely environmental when we look at the future of business. It needs to be what societal opportunities are we being created as well.
And we also know that businesses don't operate in a vacuum. And so, these sorts of issues, if they're not directly affecting your business yourself, they will maybe affecting your supply chain, maybe your customers, maybe your current or future workforce. And that's all going to have an impact on your business in some way. And therefore, it does present a risk. And some of these will be obvious and some perhaps less so, but it is all interconnected. And I think it's a really powerful way of bringing that to life, yes, at a global scale, but we could probably look into the detail and read the report if we wanted to and pick out areas that actually pose a risk to our own businesses.
So this information came out in 2023. There was a report that came out from an agency called Brown Pie that are based in London. And they spent over a year interviewing CEOs from over 200 companies. They also took time to run 7 sustainable roundtables to really understand how can we accelerate sustainable action, what's relevant for business, and how can we embed that. And these 8 levers here are the key ones that really came to life today. As businesses, this is how we can accelerate that action. And the 2 ones that we wanted to draw your attention to today are all about hardwiring that sustainability into your governance. So how are you doing business? How is that embedded as part of the day-to-day decisions that you're making? And also this focus on collaboration rather than competition, and how collaboration really can lead to these future opportunities that we've all been discussing. Now, these are 7 big questions that came out from the leaders themselves that were kind of the consistent points, and we'll make sure these are shared with you later so you can have a look at it. But the really key thing to draw attention to here as well is the question to pose to yourselves is, what can you do to accelerate sustainable action? And how are you activating your own ecosystem to deliver that positive impact? So following on from that, there's a conversation that we hear lots of as kind of, well, this all sounds well and good, but actually, does it have any kind of economic impact to my company, and what does that look like? At the back end of last year, there was a report that came out from Demos, and it's supported by the team at B Lab UK, that really looked into what is the economic impact of purpose-led businesses, focusing on benefits for workers, community, the planet, and overall economy. And the key points that came out for that were, if every business in the UK acted as a purpose-led business, that would be a 7% boost to the UK GDP. Just let that sink in. A 7% boost to UK GDP for all businesses acting as purpose-led businesses. What does that mean to the staff? Well, that would mean a £44 a week increase for the average person on national minimum wage, which is really transformative. This is what we're talking about today, and this is what we're exploring for, Nella and Steve and their businesses, and how they've really incorporated this into their businesses. We wanted to share a little quote with you here from Caroline Goddard, who is the author of Gravitas, a fantastic book. If you haven't read it, I would very much recommend it. And it's about purpose gives you momentum. It gives you that clarity. It gives you that drive. It's that guiding North Star to focus on moving forwards. And this is just a little piece of research that's come to light in the last couple of weeks, actually, again from Brand Pie. They did a survey of the FTSE 350 companies, and wanted to understand, how does purpose influence them? Is it something that's actually being brought to life within these companies? And what they discovered, and through their research, was that 78% of FTSE 350 companies have a purpose statement publicly available. And the resounding output that came from this research as well is that those companies that had a purpose statement and were living and breathing it and had embedded it into their business economically performed higher on the FTSE 350 than those that did not. So again, purpose really does help to drive that momentum. And this is a little thing here from Louisa Harris, who is Head of Sustainability and Systems Change at Brand Pie. And it really kind of resounds as, which is, you can call whatever you like a purpose statement. It's about what you do with governance in relation to the statement that counts.
So yeah, again, this is focusing on larger businesses and those in the FTSE 350, but the principles still very much apply. And if businesses of that scale and size are taking this on board and recognizing that purpose is incredibly important to them, and not just writing a statement, but actually beginning to embed that in the business, then there's something that we can all learn, whatever size and sector we happen to be. So now we're going to move on to B Corp, which is what we embed in our own businesses, what we do day to day. Patagonia, probably one of the most famous companies in the world that you will have all heard of. This is a quote that they put out around about 5 years ago now, and they said it's one of the most important movements in our lifetime, built on the simple fact that business impacts and deserves more than just shareholders. It's got an equal responsibility to the community and to the planet, which is something that we very much believe. And they back that up with actions. Now, if you as a business, what should you be thinking about as a business if you're wanting to be more sustainable? And we've want to bring to life 3 key areas. We won't go into them in detail, but firstly is your footprint, environmental footprint. Quite obvious, but it encapsulates all of the bullet points listed there. Second one is your social impact, your social outlook. There are lots and lots of ways you can do that as a business, but just as every business has a footprint, every business has a social impact too. And there are always opportunities to do good in the world as a business. And then finally, looking slightly more internally at yourselves. We're all businesses made up of people, and looking after those people, those human beings, is incredibly important, not just to ensure that the business keeps running as you would wish, but actually you have that opportunity to create a little bit of social impact through your staff, but it is thinking beyond those individuals. We all love to bring our whole selves to work, and creating a culture and initiatives and activities that do that. It's all part of being a purposeful business. So actually, what's a B Corp in itself? If you see a B Corp, as Nella and Steve are, and many others too, what actually is that as a business? Well, firstly, it's a business that meets a high standard of social and environmental performance. And it's not just them saying that, it's not just them marking their own homework. It's they've been through a process and had that independently audited to show that, yeah, this business is a good business and they do reach a very high threshold for social and environmental performance. The other fundamental thing is that those businesses are accountable to society, and the way that they've done that is by making a legal commitment to consider, as it says, the impact of their decisions in the future on all of their stakeholders, and not just their shareholders, investors, and owners of the business, and being transparent about all that as well.
So you'll hear a bit of throughout the language being used today is about B Corp versus B Lab. So just wanted to clarify that for you. So B Corp is the certification. So Omega RE and Exclusive Collections, they are B Corps. B Lab is the non-profit network that kind of governs the movement and supports those businesses using their companies as a force for good. There are B Labs located all across the world. So there's one B Lab UK, which is the non-profit network that supports B Corps in the UK. We wanted just to share this with you. It's Madeleine Albright, former US Secretary, stated that, I often wonder to what extent business can help society in its goals and alleviate poverty, preserve ecosystems, and build strong communities and institutions. And B Lab has proven that there is a way.
Why do companies certify? Well, it's one of the most common questions that we receive. Why do it? And this is not an exhaustive list at all, but these 6 fundamental reasons are why businesses do it. Protect their mission, they clarify what their purpose is, and it helps them to be more resilient in the future. It amplifies your voice, helps your business stand out, to be different and better for society and the planet in some way. It helps you, of course, improve your impact. We talked about the fact that you've had that impact measured. Practically, it will help you attract and indeed retain talent. We know that staff churn is a cost to a business, and people want to work for B Corps, and when they work for them, they want to stay there, they are loyal. But the community thing, which we'll come on to shortly, is also incredibly important. That's part of the reason why Steve and Nella, not Stella and Neve, different people. Steve and Nella are here this morning because they are part of the B Corp community. And collectively, that means that everybody, all of those businesses, lead a movement and inspire a race to the top rather than a race to the bottom.
So top things we hear is, I'm too small to be a B Corp, or it's not right for me. There are 3 key areas to qualify for becoming a B Corp. You must be a distinct entity for longer than 12 months. If you're younger than that, you can be something that's called a pending B Corp, which is kind of an introductory certification to show your commitment to doing good. So you need to be existing for 12 months, and this to show you have the evidence to really show the credible work that you're doing. You must be a for-profit enterprise and operate in a competitive space. And that is it. Doesn't matter about the type of business that you are. These are the 3 key areas.
So we talked about what you should be thinking about as a business, and how the B Corp process breaks that down is into 5 different focus areas. So governance, which encapsulates your mission and how you embed that within the business, transparency, ethics, and some financial metrics, because everything related to HR that you might expect. So from recruitment all the way up to exiting the business as an employee and everything that happens in between. Community is your social impact, how well you reflect society as a business, where you choose to spend your money as a business, the economic impact you have, civic engagement, and also your relationship with your supply chain. Environment, straightforward environmental footprint, water, energy, waste, chemicals, and how you go about managing that footprint. And then finally, your customers. What's your relationship with your customers? How do you treat them? But also, could you be doing, are you deliberately selling something that is positively impactful for your customers in some way? And a whole number of questions and subtopics that are explored within those 5 focus areas. But it's a holistic look across the business rather than just focusing on one particular thing. We talked about the legal requirement. This is how it's captured, but effectively you need to make a change to your governing documents, your articles of association or equivalent if you're not a limited company. And that's encapsulated in the impact assessment, the framework that is used by all B Corps as well. It is unique. No other framework captured that in any way, but it is something that all B Corps around the world undertaken to do.
And then this is just to give you an example of the process to become B Corp certified. So we talked a little bit about the assessment. It's called the B Impact Assessment, but actually what we really ask you to look at is a framework for change. So the questions that are asked within the assessment, the way that they're posed, really can be a clear guide to give you ideas of how to embed these actions within your business. But to become a B Corp, you register and complete your B Impact Assessment. You submit the assessment to B Lab UK, and then you go through this process, which is the evaluation queue, where they check to see actually what's the health of the assessment, are you eligible as a company to continue on in the process. You then go through verification. This is kind of what Paul was talking about earlier about not marking your own homework, and the questions as a business that you pop into this assessment will be asked for evidence. So if you're saying that you're doing fantastic work in your local community, they'll be curious as to how are you doing that? What have you been doing? Are you consistently doing this as a company? And is it individuals within the company and their kind of personal ambitions, or is it really embedded within the company itself, how it does and how it operates? So that's the key steps. It's very simplified, but evaluation, verification, and once you get through that, then you become a B Corp. We touched on this earlier about change through collaboration, and in the interest of time, we'll just touch on these lightly. But part of joining the B Corp community is this theory of change, supporting this theory of change that the B Global Networks really wanted to focus on, which is around how can they continue to transform the economic system into a more inclusive, equitable and regenerative global economy, which for all of us as kind of business owners is a really key thing to see that thrive. And this is something that the B Global Network is very keen to continue to drive. And even the team at the UN Global Compact, hopefully you've heard of the SDG Sustainable Development Goals. But one thing that they released as part of their playbook of how to make these possible for businesses globally was this new normal pattern that you can see on your screen here. So, rather than poor little collaboration and coherence, actually really focusing on systematic collaboration across all societal sectors and across different industries as well. And this is where the B Corp community really brings that to life. Currently, there are over 8,600 B Corps globally in 99 countries and over 162 industries. That's a significant tapestry of businesses, all with a similar ethos driving to make change. And within the UK, we are currently the fastest growing B Corp community with over 2,000 certified B Corps. And what we really want to draw your attention to here is about the different size of the B Corps. That question again, are I too small to be a B Corp? 750 of the B Corps in the UK currently have 10 employees or less. So the majority of B Corps in the UK are small businesses, which really shows you the opportunity for all of us to embed and really live that purpose and positive impact. And finally, but by no means least, we want to bring to light for you your Hampshire B Corps. This list is not exhaustive, as actually we've just realised that there's been some new ones come to light in the last week. But here is your tapestry of Hampshire B Corp. So absolutely Omega RE, exclusive collections, but you've also got the likes of Fat Face, we've got RWD, who are yacht designers, you've got accountants, you've got design studios, dog trainers, coffee roasters, and so many more people within it. And it really shows you the opportunity that it's not about one particular sector or one particular type of product or service that can become a B Corp or embed impact. Irrespective if it's B Corp or not, this is about actually the future of businesses, embedding sustainability and purpose, and really transforming our local economies.
More than 50 altogether, and I'm sure there's some familiar names on the slide here.
So thank you very much for listening to us there, and we will absolutely pass over now to Ross and Ella and Steve.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you, Paul. That was brilliant. And it is lovely to see so many of those businesses in Hampshire that are taking this forward. I hope anyone that's on the call that's in B Corp and isn't on that chart, ask Jamie and Paul to make sure that you are at the next time they do this presentation. But that was fantastic. Yeah, Steve, I had noticed. But we're going to now move on, and I'm going to first of all engage Nella and Steve, because as Jamie and Paul has said, they've kind of been on this journey. And so we want to hear from you, but I'm going to ask, I've got quite a few questions just to get us flowing. So Nella, please, what specific strategies do you employ to ensure that the commercial real estate solutions you offer align with both social and environmental values that are expressed by B Corp?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, as Jamie and Paul alluded to, there's 5 governance. And for us, sustainability, it runs through our DNA. So when we're giving advice in terms of commercial real estate, we're really focused on the end user and who's actually utilizing the space, the people and the clients that are coming to use, whether it's an office, an industrial unit, retail. So we're trying to create workspace that is inspiring and innovative, and making sure that it's sustainably designed in construction. So in basically giving advice how to make it more energy efficient, incorporating green building materials, optimizing the orientation. We act for Zurich Insurance, and one of the great things that they've done is introducing like sensory maps within their space, again really homing in to support their employees. So for example, one floor is heated much cooler than the upper floors. So women that are going through menopause, for example, there's different areas for them to sit. People that been used to working from a hybrid solution and working from home, you want to encourage people back into the office. So actually designing space that actually allows for the collaboration areas and quiet zones, and really being conscious on that. And I think, again, when we talk about sustainability, it hits lots of different like people, environment, and governance. So I think it's making sure that you're actually having that holistic view. So then we're also then looking into utilizing like prop tech to make sure that how can we actually measure some of these metrics. And with B Corp, as if you've gone through that assessment, it's pretty rigorous. We operate from like a co-working environment, and actually we needed to submit to B Corp how do we recycle, what is our carbon emission, etc. And if you don't have those metrics, it's really hard to kind of record and actually be transparent in how you're and submitting the assessment. So actually with the real estate, when we're advising our own clients, we're saying, right, what metrics can we put in place to allow you to be sustainable? So can we, if you're an industrial user and you've got gas heaters, can we convert that to electric heaters? Or can we use solar to help power and create more electricity in the grid? Because as we all know, everyone's converting to electric cars, or there's electric chargings and solars, but there's not actually enough electricity in the grid to actually power the operations of an office or an industrial unit. And the grid are saying that there's a delay in getting the upgrades. So how can people progress with their operations if they don't actually know how much power you can get with their particular unit? So when we're advising our clients from an acquisition point of view, we're really focusing in on, is there enough power? If there isn't, how can we use renewable and sustainable energy to allow to support your operations? And then again, people is a massive thing. So we are doing a lot of community engagement. How do we bring forward or reposition an asset to actually support the wider community? So hosting events, and again, this whole thing of this notion of working from anywhere, everyone is trying to create events to bring people back into the office. So we're arranging like street food pop-up events to art expeditions, and just really, again, just trying to engage the community. So when we talk about real estate, it's actually capturing quite a lot of the built environment. And by being a B Corp, it's really helped us understand what are the challenges other businesses are facing and how can we help support them meet those criteria in the assessment.
Thank you, Nella. That's absolutely brilliant. And it shows how we all become advocates and champions for each other. And I think that's really the strong essence of B Corp. I got a small supplementary question for you, Nella, actually, before we move on to Steve, which is you hinted at there that you're kind of a force for change and good for your clients, but also there are other partnerships. I mean, all of your supply chains and all of the partners you work with in delivery, in a way, you'd like them to be B Corps as well. You'd like them to come in and be part of a combined solution. I see Joe, I see Alison on the call. I know they're in that same situation where they want to make sure that as much of their provision and the partners they're working with are also B Corp. What's your been experience for that, Nella?
Yeah, 100%. And to be honest, we only want to work with partners that are ESG focused. Again, because we're a new company, we've got a lot of people reaching out to us and saying, can we partner with you? We see that you're doing great things, but they're trying to ride on our kind of brand. And so then when I then drill down, okay, what are your sustainable objectives? Like, what are you doing for the wider community? Then you realize that actually your values aren't really aligned. So for us, if you're already a B Corp, that's an easy tick for me. And that's the same for my clients, that they are ultimately looking for investment. So their investors in the bank, they're all sustainability led. And majority of them are saying, well, if you're going for a tender, they will weight 20% to your social values. And there are some businesses out there that just don't really see that as an important thing. And then for me, as a business owner, I only really want to support. I want to work with people. It's a business, it's people business, right? So you want to partner with people that are aligned with you, and being that B Corp accreditation, you already have vetted them essentially, because it's a 12 months assessment. So you know that people aren't doing it just for the sake of a tick list.
Thank you so much. Steve, welcome. So
hi, morning.
Tell me, in essence, why B Corp? Why accreditation? Why was it important for your business?
It's a very big question, and there are many, many, many layers to the answer, if we're really honest. And first of all, to say thanks for having me, and apologies for I officially have the most boring background today, for all the colourful stuff we're doing in the B Corp world. I've realised that a white painted wall perhaps is not the best description and our best way to showcase that, so I will change that. I think the easiest way to start is using a couple of words that Jamie and Paul used. It's about accelerating action, I think it's hugely complicated, and there are many areas. There's a huge number of areas that you can be very successful in, and some that you really maybe aren't very successful in the accreditation process, and it's a journey. I don't know of any company that has a perfect score. You're on a constant journey to improvement. And we are a portfolio of privately owned hotels, 7 of us across the UK. The oldest one is 600 plus years old. We have nearly 700 acres of land. We have 3 Michelin stars, a pub, golf course, spas, cooking school. We welcome 250,000 guests a year, and we employ almost 1,000 people. So to say we're environmentally friendly is far too simplistic. What we do have is a reputation built over 40 years by the Pecorelli family for a very welcoming level of service and for being extremely conscientious about the way we run our business. And the thing that was attractive to us was the slogan, People, Planet, Profit. And the B Corp accreditation is the culmination of that. And in essence, for us, we knew we were doing really great things. And I think to everybody listening on this call who's right at the beginning of the journey, it can be massively overwhelming, and there's so much information there. So you've got to find the bit that applies for you. And for us, it was an extremely important way to reasonably assess what we did well. We knew we did lots of things well. We're open 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There is no time to pause and have a look. It doesn't happen. So while the baton is constantly being passed, we wanted to be able to reflect on what we do well, what we could do better, how we could reposition, how we could approach things maybe in a better way. We know that hospitality has a very important role to play in society. We're the third biggest industrial employer across the UK. And we also know that from a carbon footprint perspective across the planet, 30% of that is related to food and beverage. So we have a very active role. And we know that our customers increasingly, whether that's leisure, maybe a couple getting married or having a birthday party or a, whatever, right the way through to companies looking to use us as a venue for a function, are asking the questions. We need to be aligned with like-minded places. Prove to us that you're worth coming to, or are you just a posh place in the country? And if you've got really great stories permeating every area of your business, Nella talked about it, Jamie talked about it, Paul talked about it, everybody in this call will talk about it. This is about hardwiring it into our business and our culture and our people. And if you look at hospitality, just as a top line, hospitality is one of the few industries where you can leave school and get a job straight away. If you walk into the average lawyer's office and they start at 9, finish at 9, or whatever it might be, they've all had to go through a certain level of higher education to get there. Ours attracts a diverse, largely transient workforce in a large number of cases. And if we can provide a sense of belonging and a community that they can buy into by looking after people in the right way and having a proper purpose that we can really literally say and put on the walls, that's a really good start.
Superb, Steve. Thank you. I think you look wonderful in that suit, actually. So ignore the background. I think
I put a little pocket square in just to add a bit of colour. Just
very
add a little
dapper. Very dapper.
If I pointed the camera the other way, you'd see the cooking school and the kitchen garden, but then you wouldn't see me. So I'm sorry about that.
Thanks, Steve. Just supplementary on that. I think, we've all got stakeholders. We've all got internal communications as well. And you talked about how you bring along this, workforce and how they can be transient and how you're helping them towards careers, which is really important, I think. How do you communicate that? How do you communicate that to your external stakeholders, and how do you communicate that internally? So if you like, they're on the same page culturally and in belief systems as you, and they don't just see it as a notice on the wall, but actually part of what they are.
Yeah, well, and it's a huge question, isn't it? It's every moment of every day is the honest truth, and it starts from the top. And if anybody knows hospitality at all, our managing director, Danny Pecorelli, speaks very passionately on the subject regularly. He was in Frankfurt yesterday talking about it at a sustainability conference. It's important that you're showcasing it in all areas of your business. You talked about the 5 missions for B Corp: the governance, workers, customers, environment, community. We've reframed that to build a framework of 5 around areas that we can tangibly showcase improvement. So, literally from a staffing perspective, we have an extremely strong well-being program. We have internal communication methods. I could talk literally to you all day about the number of ways that we communicate, because no one's ever in the same place all at the same time. They're covering a 24-hour period. But our journey and our framework of 5 has been reframed into the following areas. So reduce, reuse, and recycle. Every single person in our business has a role to play in that. Every staff member, every department, and that might be minimizing waste. It might be, repurposing old furniture. It might be, you name it, uniform, anything like that. So everybody has a role to play in that. We then talk about our supply chain. So every one of our employees touches the supply chain in some way. We have over 2,500 suppliers across the business. We have some very simple, easy to understand goals through our B Corp commitment. One is to eliminate single-use plastic, which we recently did at the golf club, entirely gone. That was a graduate program, so the graduates were responsible for that. Our placement students are responsible for waste. We have another project going on for our Chef Academy, which is to eliminate food waste from one of our restaurants, which has now been done entirely, 100% food waste free at Botanica in South Lodge. We're about to install a rocket composter at Langston House. It looks a little bit like an Airstream caravan, but it fast tracks food waste into mulch that we can use on the grounds, and they have an active role in that. We have staff quarterlies, we have weekly head of department meetings, you name it. It permeates every single little area of the business. And then for the 2,500 suppliers, it's pretty straightforward, Ross. If you hold a suppliers day, we're a very attractive building. People want to come and work here. you know, and it doesn't need any humans to make this building look good. When you add the human element in, that's where the magic dust happens. And if we want to work with a supplier, and it might be something as simple as micro herbs or eggs or any of the proteins or laundry, come to our supplier day. Okay, here's the invitation to the supplier day. I can tell you by 9:15 on that morning who we're going to be working with, because some don't come. That tells me immediately they're not interested in hearing what we're all about. And that tells me instantly that we're not going to be using them. There are other egg suppliers, there are other protein suppliers, and we'd rather pay more for a business that shares our values and wants to move in the right direction than because something's cheaper. It is that simple. Every single business decision made here takes into account the people and the business and the planet as much as it does whether we make profit. It's that simple.
Thank you, Steve. I think that's really good. Nella, you know, what advice do you have for other businesses? I mean, obviously, you know, there are businesses on this call. There will be businesses that will watch this video, and there's also going to be businesses throughout the whole of the chamber movement who are interested in what we're talking about today. But what advice do you have for other businesses who are interested in incorporating more sustainability into their practices? You know, whether that's socially responsible or environmental, whichever parts they lean into a bit more. What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I think making a business case, whether it's a B Corp or your ESG net zero targets, it really involves highlighting what are the tangible advantages. Is that like cost savings through energy efficiency? Is it the increase of brand reputation and meeting evolving regulatory requirements? So for example, real estate is very ESG focused. This is why we've done it, because we want to be one of the first to be leading our industry. And we're actually the first in Hampshire to do what we do, to be a B Corp. And there's only 3 of us in the UK that do commercial real estate. So for us, that's a huge thing about brand reputation. We're being accountable, and we're basically for our clients and investors, it's being really transparent. So as like I said, I've come from a corporate background. I don't have a massive corporate budget, but actually for anyone that's looking to do B Corp, it's actually much cheaper if you are a smaller business. And because it's all about turnover in terms of, it's not just a single payment, it's about how much is your turnover. And I'm the single founder of my company, so actually I did get a 40% discount, because not only am I female, I'm also in the minority ethnicity. So there are ways to actually go through the program, the assessment for all companies, particularly for SMEs. And again, it's much harder if you're a bigger ship, like as Steve alluded to, he's got 1,000 employees. Trying to make changes is actually quite hard if you don't have the right culture. So if you can get in early and actually have these targets in place and then organically grow with this as well, it's much easier to like steer a smaller ship, right, rather than turning a bigger ship. And in most cases, a lot of people are basically put off because of the financial outlay. And ultimately, yes, there is an initial financial outlay at the beginning, because you've got to get all of the metrics in place, you've got to do all of the changes and implement all of the amazing things that Steve had just mentioned and all the initiatives. But ultimately, that's a short term, and you're then attracting the right type of businesses to your organization. So I think getting in early, really focusing on what you want to achieve, and similar to what Jamie was saying about being a purposeful business, we're all about leaving a positive legacy in everything that you do. And actually, it's a huge thing about attracting the right type of talent. And that's one of the biggest challenges for a lot of businesses, is recruitment and getting the right skill sets. So being a B Corp or having those sort of values, actually you're attracting much more conscientious employees.
Thank you, Nella.
Ross, can I just add something to that?
Yes, please do, Steve.
Because I'm looking at it from that's absolutely brilliant overview. You know, I think the reality is, on the however many people on this call, you're talking about such a wide range of businesses and products and services, and you know, it's a hugely diverse area. our advice would be be realistic. You know, just be realistic and start with the stuff that you're doing already. This is an evidence-based game, and if you couldn't, we knew if we'd had evidence for a lot of the different things that we would have scored way higher in the original accreditation. And you know, we're not afraid to share this. The pass rate is 80 points, right? And you know, when you're talking about 400-year-old buildings, that kind of thing, you can, you know, where are we going to pick up the points here? And if you're going to pick up the points in areas like the well-being and the you know, your customers and your community, and we gave over £115,000 to charity through over 10 different charities last year. That counts for a lot of points. So we passed with a rate in 2021 of 80.3 points. You know, the bar was 80. You know, I've got the British Olympic Association staying with me here, and to use an analogy there, if this was a high jump, we went over and bounced the high jump pole and it stayed on. You know, it was one of those things. So but with that, that's the starting point, and reaccreditation comes up later this year. We're looking at a stretch target of 95. We're probably going to get somewhere nearer 100. Everybody understands the journey that they're on, and the small steps really do add up. And you know, it is back to your point about how do you show the staff. Well, back in the olden days, for anybody who's worked in hospitality, the first person through the door in the building is the breakfast chef. Ordinarily, they turned on all the gas burners just to heat the kitchen up, never mind cooking, and they would stand there in a coat until mid-morning and then feed everybody. This business, this particular building, has 0 gas in it. It's an induction kitchen. So you walk into the kitchen and it's still freezing at mid-afternoon. So, you know, but it's much more efficient. So you know, you have to make small decisions at the right time for the business, slowly build the points to prove that it's not about a badge. This is about a way you conduct your business on a daily basis and whether you want to do the right thing. You know, no planet B, right? This is the smart way to start.
And also just to add that the assessment is actually free. So anybody can do it just to see where they score and then help them work on those goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I may just add to both those points as well. So for clarity, the 80 points is this kind of minimum threshold that currently you need to hit as a business. And it's not out of a certain number of points. The assessment itself flexes and changes dependent on the size of your company, the industry that you're in, kind of where you work, how you work, etc. So this minimum standard is kind of 80 points, exactly as Steve was saying. And to add to kind of what Nella had just shared there as well, absolutely, to open your assessment, it's completely free. And we would absolutely invite you to have a look in there, explore it and see what opportunities come. And exactly as Steve said, it's about these kind of micro decisions that have a significantly larger effect in the long run. It's how you're then starting to embed them. And this evidence piece that really comes to life, you know, this isn't about creating, I guess just to clarify there as well, it's not evidence just for the assessment. It's all the documents that you, or processes, or the great work that you're doing as a company anyway, that you can then reflect as part of your assessment. So, you know, Steve's rocket composter and getting that impact, you know, it sounds amazing, Steve.
It's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
11 days from food waste off, you know, what am I talking about? Peelings and that kind of thing. 11 days from that to usable mulch in the gardens. And the kitchen garden here last year produced 740 kilograms of usable produce for our restaurants.
Amazing.
It's not rocket science. I mean,
thank you.
Sorry, I'm going to use that one again.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, that was very good. Yes, you should. Paul and Jamie, I think one of the interesting things is that B Corp has to keep moving. It has to. I mean, fundamentally, the structure is, I suppose, in itself reflective of the changing environment of the world. Now, how does it make sure that the scoring system and its processes actually reflect the priorities that we really are having, you know, globally and specifically for individual businesses? Does it flex in that way, responding to these changes and these challenges?
Yeah, absolutely, Ross. Thank you for that question. So the assessment currently, we're on effectively what's called version 6 of the assessment. So B Corp has kind of been in existence for a significant amount of years now, and has meant that the assessment has needed to change exactly to the points that you've just raised. You know, we mentioned earlier that it's this It's stand for good. It's a bar for people to aim for and to continue to be this driver for positivity. But with that, actually, we all see that new information is coming to light every week, if not every day. The science is constantly changing. Legislation is changing globally as well. And it's really important that an assessment or a certification like this absolutely reflects that. So currently, the team at B Lab and the B Lab networks have actually been going through the process of revising the assessment process. And we believe that will be coming in 2025, be landing for new companies. But what does that actually mean? So currently, as we said, we have these kind of 5 key areas that are being looked into, and you have to get to 80 points. This assessment change is really a reflection of the need, not just of the planet, but also of society, and is inviting businesses to therefore introduce a minimum level across all of the areas, rather than perhaps just really focusing on one key piece and not really looking at any of the other areas. Kind of to our point earlier, and Nella touched on it as well, and so has Steve, around this collaboration and partnering with people that have absolutely a similar like ethos and values to yourself. And it's really important to do that. You know, Nella's company will focus on one piece, Steve's company really drives the different, ours will drive something different. And between the 3 of us, we have this incredible opportunity for change. But these new minimum standards will start to align businesses with also what they need to be really resilient with the kind of the challenges and the risks that are to come globally. So this assessment is constantly learning and flexing. You know, we mentioned there are over 8,600 B Corps. All of them will feed into the assessment process. It's also been a very public piece as well. So it's invited feedback from general public, from policymakers, from academics, to really make sure that it continues to be that kind of that striver for change and positivity. But turning to Nella's point earlier around that there's a free assessment, there are over 200,000 assessments open globally. So that's 200,000 assessments that are open globally. That's not saying there are currently 200,000 businesses looking to become fully fledged B Corp certified. Actually, what they're doing is they're using it as a survey to check in where they're at. They're using it as this framework and this guide for change, and seeing what opportunities really can come to light for them. And the appetite moving forwards as the assessment changes is still to keep that there. So it's still to keep that element of it that allows free access to this resource for companies to continue to use it as a source for change.
The only thing I was going to add, just on the continual iteration and improvement, you know, B Lab Global recognise that there are other great things out there that are complementary. There might be industry-specific things, certification standards. They think, yeah, that's really, really good. And so we are not going to try and get in the way of that. We will consult with that particular organisation, cruelty-free in beauty or something like that, and take that and incorporate that into future iterations of B Lab standard, because the world stands still and B Lab know that they can't either, so they're not.
I think there's a very interesting question. It's an implied question that Sandeep has put into the chat. As a Chamber of Commerce, we have a very strong connection with charities. You know, we have a Meet the Charity program. Sandeep's part of that, and there's two elements to that. Obviously, in terms of ESG, one of the things is to try and get businesses working with communities, and often that's through third sector organisations, working with third sector organisations. But equally, getting third sector organisations to certify, to be accredited is a really good thing. And I'm just wondering whether it's more difficult for them, or is it actually a perfect fit that the values of the charity would fit with the values of B Corp? Maybe Paul or Jamie could have a first crack at that one.
Yeah, I think you can, because charities, certainly of a certain size and scale, need to operate like businesses. You know, they've got a very clear commitment and purpose at their heart of whatever the cause or causes are that they support. But organisations, they need to run as businesses, and they still have footprints, and they still have people working for them, and so they should be thinking like that. And there is no harm. Those 200,000 assessments that Jamie said are open at the moment. Some of those will be used by charities and public bodies. So although charities cannot certify as B Corps themselves because they're not businesses, there's no harm in them, or indeed public bodies, using the framework to affect and embed change and principles and activities, and take, learning from business effectively. There's a framework for businesses. Many business, 8,500 businesses have gone through that process and reached that threshold. So there's something to learn there about doing good and being better. And charities, there's no reason why they cannot register and they cannot explore and dive and take some of those things. It's just because it isn't. The certification process as a whole is not for charities. They can't go and become B Corps themselves at the end, but there's nothing to stop them using the learning along the way, not at all.
Yeah, it's
I think
really
just
good. I think
just
we found, Sandeep, I think we found an opportunity there. But anyway, so continue.
So Ross, I was just going to add in that in terms of charities partnering with B Corps, because ultimately we need to be supporting the wider community. So our charity partner for this year is EDT. We've chosen them because they provide education to they provide STEM education to disadvantaged kids. And obviously, in terms of our own values, we want to support the next generation and make sure that we really are including the wider community, because we've hosted a number of events where we're then elevating them and giving them the exposure to our clients. We're running a number of events where we're doing fundraising for that particular charity. And actually, I think, because obviously I sit on the Southampton Chamber leadership board, we've had those conversations that actually we need to bring those charities in the room to pretty much pitch to businesses that are going down that route, because you want to be collaborating with them, you want to be growing and supporting the wider community. So there's definitely a synergy there.
Yeah,
thank you, Nella. Absolutely. Susan's asked a question about sole traders. How many are sole traders, and what are the difficulties or issues or opportunities around being a sole trader and either being in the foothills of B Corp, which is starting the process, or actually completing that process? Anyone had experience? I mean, Jamie and Paul, you'll know some of this.
Yeah, absolutely. There are sole traders. There are solopreneurs that are B Corps. I want to say around about 100, I think, maybe just slightly under, as in the UK as the community. So there's absolutely no reason why not. And the assessment reflects, we broke down how the areas that it looks like. One of them is workers. Well, clearly, if you're a solo entrepreneur, you have no workers, and that's fine, because when you register, that section disappears, and you're not unfairly disadvantaged because of the circumstances of your business. It's just all unnecessary points are reallocated. So that's why the breadth and spectrum of businesses can still be B Corps. Steve's business is radically different to Nella's in size, sector, and everything else, but they're both still B Corps. So how does that work? It's because the framework is agile enough to recognize it, and that's the same for sole traders.
Absolutely.
So absolutely possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess to add to that as well is Paul was saying about these assessment flexes, and to the question in there around, is it harder? In a way, we'd actually say it's easier, because if you think, as a sole trader or solopreneur, it's just yourself. You're looking at your own values. You're making sure that you have that choice within yourself to make quick change and to embed that and how you're practicing and what you're looking at and the decisions that you're making. When you're looking at companies, let's look at ones in Hampshire, like Simply Health, for example, with thousands of employees, to turn that company into make a change would take a significantly longer period of time than it would perhaps for an individual to implement that and to start progressing. So there's absolutely no disadvantage to being a sole trader and becoming a B Corp. And I think Nella actually specifically said this up earlier. Perhaps it's easier and simpler and cheaper to do it as in that way.
Ross, can I answer the question that's in the chat there about the overwhelming nature of what B Corp looks like?
Certainly can, Steve.
Hi, Alison. I just read that. It's a really interesting question. So exclusive, a lot of people know exclusive from maybe Penny Hill Park or South Lodge or one of the bigger hotels that are more commonly in the news. What we realized we had a purpose well before we had B Corp status. I think that's quite an important thing to say. B Corp has many advantages. There's a PR element. People tell people, and in our case, we were the first hotel group to be accredited, so that certainly helps. But you get a limited window for that. But what's been quite interesting about it is it created quite a clear roadmap. Actually, we'd done the internal job about what our brand needed to be. We'd done the internal job about what our vision on a daily basis is for the 1,000 staff. It's quite simple: create happiness in amazing places. That's it, in whatever format. It could be as simple as opening a door, or it can go in the extra mile, whatever. And then there are 7 values that we impart across every single department all of the time. And that created the framework for the initial discussion. So when we then, and we personally as a group, we employed a consultant outside. So the partnerships thing is not just about necessarily having good suppliers who buy into your values and whatever else. It's a lengthy process. It's a time-consuming process. Gathering the evidence is time-consuming. It's a really big thing, and it should be, because it's an important accreditation. So for us, we employed an external consultant, and that external consultant walked us through the process and asked us the questions that we needed to do to clarify where we were going to get the points. And once we kind of had that initial assessment, which you guys said, doesn't cost anything, we sort of knew that we were in the ballpark. And then, right, okay, if that's the case, where's the evidence hiding? In which sort of cupboard or file on your computer is the evidence? And bit by bit built up till we felt the confidence to then go for the accreditation. So I think, Alison, your point is really important, but what's the values? What's the values? What's the purpose? If you start with that, other people can get you down the line.
Steve, I think the interesting thing is that we within our Green Innovation Steering Group have often talked about being in the foothills of B Corp or being in the foothills of accreditation. And in a way, what you've described and I think what Jamie was saying is very much around the fact that you can open this up, you can start looking, you can start finding, you can start exploring. Yeah. The mountain is there, but you don't have to worry about climbing that quite yet. You can gradually chart your course and plan. I'm going to get Nella wants to say something, but then I'm going to ask everybody in the room, please, to put their hands up. Use the raise hand symbol, because then it goes in order. And I'd be very happy to bring questions in or observations. Susan and Alison, Sandeep, you've been putting things into the chat. Please, we'd like to hear from you. So please put your hand up and you can either ask a question or add some knowledge and information to it, and I'll take it one by one. But firstly, Nella, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to add, obviously I'm at the other end of the scale, Steve, because we're a team of 5. We didn't hire an external advisor to support us with our assessment. We had that initial, I think it was an Enterprise 3 consultancy that gave us a 1-hour just chat, what is B Corp? And then ultimately I did the assessment ourselves between our teams. And then we scored 146. And ultimately that is pretty high. But when we actually went through the assessment, that reduced down to 86, because there are things that I thought that should be as evidence, but actually B Corp said no, that doesn't meet the criteria, etc. But what it did do for me was actually say, right, we are doing this, but we just need to provide the evidence. So let's put that into our employees handbook, or let's incorporate that onto our website, and make sure that our statement is very, very visible. So it just helped us guide how we could become a B Corp. So I think actually, if you are feeling a bit overwhelmed, to be honest, it was a 12-month assessment, and we don't have the funds to employ external support. So we did do it on a bootstrap, and it can be done.
Thank you, Nella. We're opening it up now. We've got 20 minutes to go for the programme. And I know we've got Susan, then Harriet, and then Alison. So Susan, please.
Just a couple of comments. Nella, I really appreciated your last comment there about doing it on a bootstrap. As a business coach, I work with a lot of micro businesses, who employ up to maybe 5 employees if they're lucky. Personally, I'm a sole trader. I have no intentions of registering. I don't want to register a company unless Companies House says I have to go that route, then I'll go that route. I also don't want the hassle of employing people. I'd rather subcontract in when I have other bits and pieces, and that suits me and my business model. Okay, but taking that, I think the micro businesses, those little dinky businesses like Alison and myself here, possibly could benefit by maybe having a once a month not workshop, yeah, call it a working session where we support each other to get to B Corp. We discuss, well, hang on, what's this mean on there? And it provides us with a little bit of accountability, because one of my big challenges is I can commit to stuff and I can start it, but it's pushing it through to the end, because when it gets tough and there's no support, it tends to fall off the time plate. You know, the plate's not big enough. So that's kind of where that one fits in. I'd also like to pick up the comment that charities can't be B Corps. I think that's an insult to all charities. Most charities I know work to a darn sight higher standard than many businesses that I know when it comes to accountability across so many levels. And I'm saying that as the chair of the Southampton Mental Health Network, the chair of the trustees there. We are held to incredibly high standards by the Charities Commission and by people who support us in terms of our funding and the feedback that we have to give and the impact assessments we have to do and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the fact that, you know, just because you're a registered charity, it can't be a B Corp. Hang on a minute, B Corp, wake up, smell the coffee. I think they're missing something here. And I, for one, would be happy to be involved with a monthly get together with a bunch of micro solopreneurs, little dinky companies, to, you know, over the next year to work towards B Corp certification. My brain's going, you know, oh, Schweppes, another thing. But in the background, I know it's the right thing to do.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Susan. And that shout out is exactly what was going through my mind, and I'm sure going through Sandeep's and through others. But you know, trying to turn the ship around that is B Corp might also be a difficult thing. But it's a good conversation to have. We've got Harriet, and then we've got I think we've got double Alison. I think.
Really?
I'm sure that's a painting. Anyway, we've got double Alison, but we've got Susan, we've got Harriet to start with, and then we've got Alison. You wanted to say something though, Jamie, quickly.
Yeah, so sorry guys, we dropped out. We had a slight connection issue then. We caught the beginning of Susan's questions. We just really wanted to say apologies if you've just discussed it, but to answer your piece there around the collaboration support, absolutely, we find that works well. It's actually what we do is we run a program to support companies through that process together to make it more attainable. And to the piece around charities, we dropped out at the point where we heard about it being an insult. It's not meant in that way at all. It's purely a reflection of driving change for businesses and the opportunities that business has as for-profit entities to then, and absolutely, as Nella was saying earlier, and we know so many B Corps that seek out and work with charities to really put that profit to good use. And that's really, it's not a reflection of charities, it's actually more of a focus on businesses to challenge them and say, what are you doing? How are you doing it? Where is your profit going? And what can you be doing better? And at some point, a line has to be drawn, and that's where that is, to give that real focus on for-profit entities to continue to use that profit for positive uses.
Very good. Absolutely. We get the point fundamentally.
Businesses together.
Yes. Harriet, please. Your
Hiya.
question or observation.
Yes, thank you. I'm Harriet from Q Factorial. So we specialise in sustainability strategies for small businesses as well as quality ones. I would be interested to hear how you decided that B Corp was the right strategies for yourselves. Obviously, there's so many different ones out there. What we find is a lot of our clients, they get lost in the woods with all of the different strategies to choose from. So I would just be interested to know why B Corp was the one that you guys chose.
Very good, because there's kind of ISO, is it 1400?
ISO 14001, there's EcoVadis,
yes.
There's absolute minefield of them out there, and everyone gets pulled in different directions by different people. And yeah, why did we all settle on B Corp?
Excellent, Harriet. Thank you. So let's hear from Stephen and Nella as to why B Corp.
Well, I'm speaking, I suppose with a fairly narrow lens in the sense that I'm talking about a hotel group. So first of all, you may not know this, but the term greenwashing was invented in the hospitality industry. So we were very keen to avoid that and come up with working something that was a more general base. I think the umbrella catches a bit of everything. In our business, we talk about organic, we talk about fair trade, we talk about lots of different quantifiable accreditations and targets. B Corp had a bit of everything, and it was covering, when you look at the 5 missions, we've talked about them, but governance, workers, customers, community, and environment. Those are the 5 main areas in which we deal, and we loved the fact that it put people, planet, profit as the 3 titans of discussion. That's very real for our stakeholders to understand, and no one had it in our business, so it made sense. And it's incredible. I have a little B Corp plaque in reception with a bit of recycled, reused, I think it's fireman hose from London Fire Brigade that does the B and the C. That's pretty cool. It's a topic of conversation when people walk in. Lots of people ask about it. And these days, and it is no exaggeration to say that when youngsters come and apply for jobs, it's me who is being interviewed. There is absolutely no question that it is the other way around now. And they're asking questions on what we care about and what we do about charity and how we look after our customers and how we look after. Someone asked me in an interview a couple of months ago whether we had a sleep pod for staff. We may be a hotel. We have not stretched to a sleep pod for staff yet, but it's the tide is turning, and I think what it does is it encaptures a bit of everything, and that's why it was appealing for exclusive.
Steve, did you remind them that you sleep while you're standing up?
I said book a room.
Yes, indeed. Nella, please. Why B Corp?
Yeah. For me, it's fairly similar in the sense that it offered a more of a holistic approach, because of those 5 areas. We were in the advice that we're giving in terms of like our marketing strategy. We just created the largest UK clean air mural in Southampton, which basically extracts CO2 out of the atmosphere. So for us, there was a bit of brand differentiation and market advantage. Like I said, we're one of 3 in the UK that do exactly what we do. We're the first ones in Hampshire, with ISO and all of the other accreditations, which we are looking into. But ultimately, for me, B Corp was the la creme of sustainability. And isn't when you're thinking about the consumer market, you'll see it on the Evian bottles, the Patagonia clothing. For us, when we're trying to disrupt the real estate industry, we're not competing with real estate firms. We want to be competing with other companies or understanding what are they doing in their marketing strategy? How can we learn from them? And it's rather than focus on a silo, you have to look at it a much more holistic view. And for me, that's what B Corp does.
That is a brilliant answer, Nella. Thank you. I think that's superb. Because it is the whole marketing positioning and it is the whole brand value. And I think, yes, we have to accept that B Corp has positioned themselves, and it is a really good thing to align with, because you're not aligning with B Corp, you're aligning with everybody else that aligns with B Corp. And that's a very strong ecosystem, I think, in terms of those shared values. So I'm still waiting for more hands to be put up, but I do have some questions. So I thought I would say, Steve, with the benefit of hindsight, what would you do differently?
Start earlier. I think it's an extremely good galvanizing tool, Ross. What would I do differently? I mean, I think there are still a lot of people who aren't familiar with what B Corp is. It's a fairly simplistic logo. It's fairly, subtle. It's not blasted into your face. The business has expanded over 40 years. We've only added our 7th property this year. I think maybe I don't know, I haven't seen the graph about the acceleration of companies that are going for accreditation, but I think COVID gave us a really interesting moment to reflect on our positioning in the market and what we were doing. I think if we were serious, if we looked back before the COVID pandemic and what was going on in hospitality, I think a lot of hotels and restaurants and so on were just basically taking anything that came, and it was the hamster wheel was getting faster and faster and faster and faster. And the churn of people was huge, and then Brexit was there, and we lost half of the workforce. That was a bit of a disaster. And so that moment in time, while not a good moment in time, allowed us to draw a line in the sand and really, I said it maybe in my opening here, was about go back and reflect and reposition ourselves and on how we approach things and how we market ourselves to all of our stakeholders. You know, 1,000, of course, we're talking about our customers, of course, but we've got 1,000 employees. That's a lot. You know, how are we talking to them? How are we retaining them? How long are people staying with us? Is there a big churn in percentage of staff turnover? And I don't. So I guess my answer to your question, I'm sorry for the long-winded answer. I don't think I would really do anything different, because we're right at the bottom of the point score. We're learning as we're going. But it's about the honesty to look in the mirror and recognize where we need to work and where we need to concentrate efforts. All the people who work, all those 1,000 people have jobs. They don't have B Corp jobs, they have jobs. So giving them more to do is not ideal. You know, so it has to fit in with our business. It has to fit in with our daily action, and I think that moment just to stop, reflect, look, start at the beginning. You know, eat a bit of humble pie and go, right, where are we going to go? What do people want? That coincided with employees asking for more, clients expecting more, leisure guests' expectations shooting through the roof, and how do you manage that? And I think it was an appropriate time. So I think maybe a bit earlier, but I wouldn't really change much. I think it's a pretty good system.
Thank you, Steve. I will be asking Nella that same question in a minute, but we've got a question from Alison. So please, fire away.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
We're just a bit dubious. I dropped out as well a couple of times, so that's why I kept disappearing and putting my hands up several times. Thank you so much for the response to the overwhelming question. Joe and I did start through Hampshire Chamber the B Corp assessment, and it was quite obvious that we would tick boxes very easily because neither of us drive. I work in a cold office with no heating on from home and all of the other things. And our big challenge is persuading our suppliers and finding the suppliers to tick our box, which isn't always easy. And we got a bit disillusioned. There's, like you say, there's people pulling you from every direction saying, do this, do that, try, be this, be that. Anyway, we decided that actually the most important thing was people's passion about it. And I see that here today. And it's really interesting listening to Steve and Nella and the reasons for going for B Corp, because that's one of the things. Which one of these options do we take? We know we're doing it right, and but we just need that stamp that says yes, they're doing it right, and please come and use us rather than designers down the road. And so I think this has been amazing. I didn't hear all of Sue's talk because that was when I dropped out, but I think a get together for this little micro businesses who do make a massive difference. I mean, we already are making a difference. We persuaded people to one of our clients to change their shower heads for one that's been designed locally. I think we've talked to Ross about these people talking on Hampshire Chamber, and that will save them thousands and thousands of pounds on water. We didn't get anything out of that apart from, well, thanks very much, but we're building a database of amazing products and we need to get it out there. But I think it's just, where do we spend our limited time? Because I already work ridiculously long hours.
Nella, maybe you can help Alison with that, because it's slightly related, but in industry areas. What do you feel Alison should do, bearing in mind she feels overwhelmed sometimes?
I've been there. I have 2 children. When I launched the business, 20 days later, I had skin cancer. So that whole positive legacy is really important for me. And that's what drives my business. So really understanding, what do you want to achieve? Why to become B Corp? For me, it's making sure that you've got the right team. We appointed virtual VAs to support us with pulling together some of these documents. Like I said, the whole doing it bootstrap, like, I'm happy to have a conversation with you about what we did and how we ran the process to kind of meet the criterias. I know when you were saying about being pulled in lots of different directions, and this is something that I said to Ross, that I'm one that I can't say no. If someone says, join this panel, do this presentation, I'm like, yeah, okay, let's go for this. But ultimately, you really need to start focusing, okay, is that going to actually generate me any business? What is the purpose? Who am I supporting? And does that meet like our goals or where we're trying to go? And ultimately, it's about raising awareness and educating your supply chain, your partners, because like I said before, your network is your net worth. If people want to do business with people that have the same values and aligned, so using the chamber and creating groups is obviously really powerful, because ultimately those are the people that are on that same journey as you. But also just saying no to some of those groups and just really understanding, like, this is the direction we're going to concentrate on, becoming a B Corp. It is tough, I have to say. Like, there was definitely, like, it was a 12 months assessment for us, and the assessor kept on saying, no, you haven't met this evidence, where's this evidence, where's this? And I literally about to throw the computer out the window. But it's actually what Steve's saying is like, okay, well, fine, we didn't meet that score, but maybe there are points that you can pick up in other sectors or in the other pillars, and actually saying, okay, maybe we haven't met that score, but that's okay, because I was a little bit disheartened when we scored 86, bearing in mind that I thought we were going to score 146. So to like go down, it was like, oh my God, we're not that great. But actually, it was about, well, how do we improve? Because you're assessed every 3 years.
Thank you, Nella. Brilliant. We're going to hear from Philip and then Joe. We're getting close to the end of the event, but let's hear from Philip and then Joe, and then we'll do a little bit of a wrap up from our panel. Philip, please.
Thanks, Ross. Yeah, this is this is actually perhaps a question for the chamber to go away and think about rather than anything else. Picking up really what Alison was just saying about passionate people. I think most of the people on this call today are passionate people who are already, in principle, committed to improving society through whatever means that we run our businesses. But one of the issues that I think we faced in the chamber before is, how do we embed this type of thing in all the chamber activities that we do? I'd be really interested to know how many of those Hampshire B Corps that were thrown on that slide earlier are members of the Chamber of Commerce. Yeah. And therefore, if they're not many, what more do we need to do as a chamber to encourage those companies to come on board so we hear their voices, not just the voices of the 2 or 3 companies who we know are really, really throwing themselves into this? And it was great to hear Nana and Steve on the call today. But, there are more people out there doing this stuff, making it mainstream. How do we bring those people on board so that we hear from them too? And the people who are perhaps a bit reluctant or a bit are not committed at the moment, go, do you know what? There's something in this for me too.
Very good, Philip, and I agree wholeheartedly. Maybe we should, and I say this openly in front of everybody, those who are in membership and our B Corp, maybe we should create a special grouping of the accreditation B Corp champions, make it advantageous to them, let them become spokespeople and champions within the chamber movement as well, and there's a partnership to be built there. And I 100% agree. It is we do feel like we're preaching to the already converted, and that's sometimes a little bit frustrating. I want to reach out to all of those businesses who are trepidatious about doing this, but really do want to. They just need to have reached that tipping point. So absolutely, Philip. Final one, I think. Alison's got her hand up. Is that again or still? No. So we'll go. Thank you, Alison. We'll go to Joe, and then I'll just do the final wrap ups with the panel members to say a few words, and then I'll do the final words. So Joe, please. You're on mute, Joe. You found it. There you go.
I was making it more complicated than it was. Right, this actually really neatly carries on from Philip. Alison and I went to the Innovation Zero event at Olympia a couple of weeks ago, and although I was hanging around the built environment area, I ended up in the food area and saw a talk by an amazing guy called Jack Bobo, and he said he's been banging on about food security, about sustainability for years and years and years. And he said it is always preaching to the converted and things don't quite move. And what he said is he's decided we need to project a really positive future. Forget the doom saying climate change, climate disaster. You promote what you want in the world and you focus on that, and that brings people along. And I thought that really changed my mind about the way I've thought about things. Forget banging on about how we have to avoid this disaster. Just look at a really positive future and promote that and market that. Anyway, that was my final point.
Thank you, Jo. Very good final points. And so
that's a really good point.
Nella, Steve, Jamie and Paul, I'd just like you to do your final sentence. What would you say to people who are thinking about getting into the foothills of this? What's your encouragement? What would be your final few words? Nella.
Just do it.
Thank you, Nella. Steve.
Well, I agree with that. Absolutely. I think if you can honestly say when you look in the mirror that this is hard, that improving things is hardwired into what your business is there for, then the best time to start was like ages ago, but the next best time is today. And from our perspective, it's improved commercially, socially, physically. No gas on site. Getting rid of fossil fuel reliant kit, all that sort of stuff. It focuses the mind, and it's a heck of a journey. I would encourage it.
Thank you, Steve. And Paul and Jamie.
Yeah, absolutely. Nella actually said exactly what we were going to say was, do get started. So instead we'll say, think of it as, don't let the word assessment fool you. Think of it as a guide or a framework for change, like a path to follow. Be curious with it, explore it, and absolutely ask any of us for support or help as you go through it. There is a community there to get behind you as well, and that community has a lot of great opportunity with it. So be curious, I think, would be our final one.
Well, that's another C. Be curious. I like that. I'm just going to say a few final words. Thank you very much for this really energetic, energized Chamber Solutions event, and we are going to take as a chamber all of the good advice, recommendations that we've heard today, and ensure that they are part of the collaboration work that we do with Pollinator, with partners and stakeholders broadly. But I also think, as a Chamber of Commerce, we always talk about investment in culture, investment in community, and investment in collaboration. Well, maybe now we should be talking about investment in certifying as well. That's our fourth C, and I would strongly recommend that you find those foothills and you start climbing towards whatever goal it is. I think it's a fantastic opportunity. And I've been completely convinced by what I've heard today, and we'll probably start our journey fairly soon. Many thanks to you all, and see you at the next Chamber of Solutions. Could I ask the panel to stay on just so we could do a small wrap up at the end? But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Has someone turned the sound off, or is just no one speaking?
No one's speaking.
I think everyone was just pausing until.
I'm going to just remove.
Well, Nella's one is the autopilot still on.
Yeah,
but
and I've just
that will-
removed some
that will
others
go.
out of the
That will
room.
go eventually, but don't worry. Can I just say thank you, everybody? What a brilliant performance, and I mean that literally. You're wonderful public speaking and wonderful content. So much, and I think you addressed the subject brilliantly. I feel like bottling this or canning this and just getting this message out to everybody now, because I think it's been a good one. It is a shame that there were 22 people on this call, and they are really good advocates from the Chamber's point of view, and I think that they will be spreading the word for us all, and hopefully that will open some more doors. But I think we've got to find a way to do this to other audiences along the way, and I will be thinking about that. From a Chamber point of view, we've got a new commercial operations director that will be joining us, and part of that is to try and ensure that these good things that we're doing can multiply and replicate across a wider business audience. And so that I will put very much on the first day discussions with that lucky person. But did you enjoy it, and what do you feel we should do?
I think it was, I guess first of all from us, thank you so much, Nella and Steve, for joining. We're having this conversation with Ross before. Absolutely, it's really important to make sure that people that have been on the journey and live and breathe it much exactly like you both do, and how beautifully it's always articulated from you both. It's always a pleasure to hear you speak. So thank you so much for sharing that again today. I think that was something we really wanted to impress, and I think it's so exciting to see how many questions are asked as well, which is always really positive. Whatever route those questions came through, it shows that there's curiosity there, which is always really positive, because at least it means there's a conversation and some energy to be had to kind of get the momentum going.